Today we're talking with military spouse Karissa Adkins, CEO and founder, 365 Daily Hustle. Karissa, thanks for being here today. Really looking forward to hearing your story and talking about business and entrepreneurship. You're a military spouse. Tell us a little bit about your background and what it's like being a military spouse.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I absolutely love just sharing my energy and my passion with anyone who is really honestly willing to listen to it.
Awesome.
Gosh, my experience as being a military spouse goes all the way back to when I was 19 years old. I met my first husband. And I honestly, I like 3 weeks before I met him, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends. I was like, I would never marry a military man. And she's like, why? And I was like, I just don't think I could deal with like them leaving all the time and having to like handle everything on the house side, the house front, the kids, the dogs, like all that jazz. 3 weeks later, met my husband at the time, and a year later married. So it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, famous last words, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, talk a little bit about maybe some of the places you've been stationed over the years, a little bit of background there, and then ultimately we want to hear, where did this entrepreneurial thing come from with you?
Absolutely. So I met my husband, I should say, at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska.
That's right.
That's where I am from. He was from North Carolina, and he was just an airman when we met. So in the dorms, and he would always come over to my apartment. So that was home for me. And I'll be honest, I didn't really have to get involved in the military family, right? With a military family. I didn't have to get involved because I'd already had family. I'd already had a lot of friends. So our very first assignment that we had, I'd never even left like the state of Nebraska, if you will. And I remember getting the call and he's like, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Just tell me, I'm working, right? Like, just tell me what's going on." And he's like, "We have orders to Spangalum." And I'm like, "Okay, but what is that? Where is that?" And he's like, "We're going to Germany." And I was like, "Okay, you're right. I'm sitting down now." So yeah, little Midwestern gal who had never left her state really ever, besides driving to Iowa, maybe. I was like, wow. And I just had this moment, it kind of flashed and, within me, I was like, wow, I've got 2 young kids. We're going to be moving. We have a dog. Like, how's life even going to happen? How am I going to drive? Like all of that stuff kind of, immediately hit. And then he rest assured me that we would be okay and that everything was going to be fine. So we did go to Spangallen, Germany. We were there for 3 years. I absolutely loved being overseas. I made some of the best friendships there. And
Awesome.
that's quite honestly where my life took a big turn too. So 2011 was a huge year for me stationed there.
Yeah. So, living overseas, Germany, were you still working at the time, or still not really doing the entrepreneurial thing? I mean, you got some young kids and dogs, and you're pretty
Yeah,
busy as
yeah,
anything,
not
right?
quite yet, not quite yet. So, I had always worked for my mom. My mom was an entrepreneur. So, ever since I was a little girl, I grew up in the back of her shop watching my parents do their thing. So I've kind
Yeah.
of grown up in this entrepreneurial space of just like, hey, we're going to figure it out on our own, and we'll do fine. And so moving to Germany was actually the very first time that I didn't work. I had my son at 15 years old. And so I kind of, had to grow up really quickly. I started working, for my mom and then part-time as a server. And so I was just kind of like, a girlfriend and a spouse, and I didn't really know my place in this world yet. But we were stationed there about halfway through. My husband was on a deployment for 6 months, and I had just gone, to a doctor's appointment that ended up changing my life forever. So there we are. We're in that doctor's office. My daughter is playing in the corner because she's 2 years old at the time. My son's in school and he's 8. And and she looks at me square in the eye, Joe, and she says, "Karissa, you're 5 foot tall. You're 213 pounds. If you don't change your lifestyle today, you might not be around in 10 years for your kids. You might not be here. Like that's the path you're on. You're on antidepressants. You're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. You're, sad. You're like, she could clearly tell I was like mad at the world. And I lost myself. And not just in Germany, but, the few years prior, kind of leading up to that. And that was the day that changed my life forever. My eyes were open. It was so, like, I always say that was the rock bottom, but it was the next day sitting on the couch. I looked over at a picture of my mom, and I didn't see the entrepreneur. I didn't see the hustler. I didn't see the woman who was taking care of 4 kids. Like, I didn't see all of that. I didn't see the lessons and the hugs and the love. And instead I saw her battle with cancer, and I saw obesity, and I saw diabetes, and I saw, she had just come up to visit, and we went to Paris for 2 weeks, and we had to literally stop every few blocks just to like catch her breath. Like, I saw all of her, like her hustle and her grind, and what it really wasn't doing for her. She was killing herself with being an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, I that epiphany kind of snapped. I saw myself as her for the first time, kind of like in the future, like, wow, this is what my kids are going to be having to deal with.
Mhm.
This is what my husband was going to have to deal with. And that was the moment that I was like, enough is enough. That was the switch. And it took me about 2 years to lose close to 100 pounds of weight, and I want to say fat. But what happened and evolved in that journey was I really found my why, right? I found who I was through the gym, through making time for myself again, because prior to that, I was just a spouse, and that's how I felt. I was just somebody's spouse. And instead I found myself. I started loving myself. And that in turn kind of turned into this, how can I take my transformation and help other women who are going through the same struggle with either their weight, their relationships, their mindset, doesn't matter what it is. I have been through that fire, and I know how to rise from the ashes now. And I freaking love that in 2019, I was able to walk away from my corporate job and pursue my passion as a coach and speaker and as an author.
Wow. So I'm curious, that day that happened, it sounds like you literally just flipped a switch. It took you 2 years to accomplish it, but it almost sounds like you were unwavering during that 2 year time. I'm sure there were struggles and everything, but what I mean, so many people, especially Americans, struggle with the same thing. What was it? How were you able to actually flip a switch and make it work? Like, how did you actually do it?
Yeah, that the how, right?
What's the
It's like,
secret?
what did you do? Yeah, and it's been over a decade, you guys. So it's like I didn't just lose the weight, which most people do. That's the easy part. It's sustaining that healthy lifestyle. And I really took the doctor's advice, right? She said, change your lifestyle. She didn't go out and say, lose the weight. She said, change your lifestyle, change who you be in this world. So what I did is I like wiped my tears, right? I was like, enough, right? I'm not this victim. You're right. Because at one point I was a champion. I was a gymnast. I was strong mindseted. I was, I had drive and passion. I just kind of lost it over the years. So I wiped the tears. I sat down with a piece of paper, and my very first step was, I'm going to list out everything that I know to be true about losing weight and getting into shape. Right. And I was like, working out, stressing less, drinking more water, quit smoking. Like, I probably had a list of 50 things. And then I sat there and looked at that list, and I was like, wow, this is really overwhelming. I don't even know where to begin. But then I remember hearing like this voice, and it was like, Karissa, you do know where to begin. Like, just pick 2 things that you can that you can do consistently, and that you're willing to commit to. And so that was the day I picked moving my body, because let's face it, walking my son to the bus stop and then walking my booty back to my house was not going to be enough. So I committed to daily movement, and then I committed to eating less. So most women I say most, I don't want to generalize that, but a lot of women I work with, they're trying to do too many things all at once. They're hopping on these unsustainable diets and these plans and these pills, these quick fixes, if you will. And I said, well, what would be like the very biggest thing? And I'm like, I just need to stop eating so much, And so I went from 3 plates to 1 plate at a time. And through that, just learning to master portions I wasn't changing what I was eating at all. I was just changing the amount that I was eating.
Yeah.
And then through that process, I started to ask I'm like, why do I eat so much? Why am I choosing to numb out what am I trying to numb out by being so incredibly full? So
Right.
just as it really did, that moment sparked such a transformation. And probably the first 6 months, those are the only 2 habits I focused on, was moving my body, and eating less food. And that alone took me down 60 pounds. And then it became fun, right? Because as you see the weeks go by and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, these clothes
Wow.
don't fit. Like I feel like $1,000,000. I feel sexy around my husband. I feel like I have energy again. I feel like I can take care of my kids. Then it just became like a snowball, right? I was like, ain't nothing stopping me. So it's been a fun journey.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. All right, back talking with military spouse Karissa Adkins, CEO, founder of 365 Daily Hustle. So, Karissa, you're in Germany. You've lost a lot of weight. Let me change that. You've changed your lifestyle, and now you guys are getting orders. You're coming back from Germany. So, continue on. And how did ultimately this turn into your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So, we getting ready to go. We're leaving Spingalum and we have our list of like 5. And, I tell my husband at the time, like, let's go back to Offutt, right? Like it's home for me. It's home for one of us. And I'll have a job there with my mom. Like I'm feeling great, and he's like, okay, okay, okay. So we get back to Offutt. And I actually lost my mom the very first week that we moved back. I lost her to cancer. And so instead of allowing that moment, that's like she was my best friend, right? She was my support system. She was my reason why I even decided to change, is because I did not want to be like her in that picture. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I want more for myself. So I felt such a loss, but I had to be so strong for my family, for my siblings, like I was the one that was like keeping us together. And so we got back, and I was fumbling through all of her papers and going through all of her business, stuff. And I remember opening up a ledger, like old school ledger. I'm talking like green paper, check. It's pretty much a P&L. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, what is this? And I was like, wow, this is a sign from God that I'm supposed to start a business. Like just because I lost my mom and that was the plan, I need to pivot and still continue on this journey. And I really wanted, to kind of carry on the tradition of what my mom was doing. That was what I grew up doing, right? Like that was our way of life, and it provided. And so I started my very first company. It was called Suit Up Tuxedos and More. And it was a tuxedo, suit, and cigar shop, because I picked up cigar smoking in Germany, as odd as that is. Health coach, also smokes cigars, but I do like the occasional one. But yeah, I started that business. And I remember a gal walking into my store, and she sat down and she said, Karissa, I'm looking for a military spouse. I'm looking for someone who's spunky, who has high energy, who is really great with marketing. She's like listing all these characteristics. And I'm like, I don't know a single woman like that. And then I did have no idea, right? Like this is coming. And she goes, no, no, no. We're looking for you. We are here for you. And I'm like, we are in my own tuxedo shop. Like I own this place. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just starting to make a profit. I have employees. Like life is getting better now. And I said, you know what? I just don't think that this is for me. However, I will think about it. And of course, I think big things happen when our spouses are deployed, because it was deployed and it was just like a 3-month thing at this time. And I remember calling him and I'm like, hey, there's an opportunity on the table. And what are your thoughts? And, we bounced off of each other. We're a team, and we bounced off ideas off of each other. And he said, you know what? I can't stop you. Like you're on this unstoppable path. He's like, if you got to follow your heart. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put the tuxedo shop up for sale, and I'm going to go work for this collision center. And the reason why I wouldn't have left what I had been building for anyone, but what I loved was that this collision shop supported the base. It was literally like 2 miles away. In fact, it was named after the Offutt Air Force Base. So it was kind of cool. So there was a lot of like heart connection for me to leave. And I was like, I can learn from this place. I can, do all these things. So 5 years into the marketing field, I finally take on another position. I'm taking on not just the marketing, I'm taking on the HR. I'm just moving up the ladder, if you will. I'm building, relationships in the community. It's my job as marketing and business development to be involved on the base, to be, I loved being everything that I could on the base. Like I'd be sponsored on everything. It was just so much fun. But as, I was rising up in this role, the community was seeing a whole new different woman, right? They were seeing a confident woman. They were seeing a leader rise up. They were seeing like, they were like, dang, the scale's going down and her, like everything about her is rising. And so I started volunteering at a local gym. I was like, I just want women to feel like I feel, you know? So
Yeah.
I was volunteering, meeting women on the side. Literally, we were at Panera Bread every Sunday, and I was just talking, you know, helping them, mentor them, guide them, helping them build habits. And I remember a mentor of mine, she said, Karissa, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? And I was like, gosh, you know, I'll probably still be at this collision center. However, if like money was not a thing, I would be coaching women for free. And that, like that moment, saying it out loud, I was like, I need to follow my passion yet again. I need to pivot, and I need to follow, and I need to go, and I need to just take the leap of faith and start this whole online empire. So that's
You
how I got
specifically
started.
remember that as your light bulb moment. That's
Yes,
actually one specific thing happened. The
yes, yeah.
proverbial light bulb moment. Yep.
I said it and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Like, and it just kind of downloaded through my body. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is what I meant. This is what I am meant to do. Like, I truly believe I needed to go through the weight loss journey, the starting my business, the losing my mom, you know, the corporate, the hustle, the grind. You know, I needed to go through all of that to come up and emerge into this new entrepreneur. Like, I wouldn't be the woman here today had I not gone through that journey,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Wow. Talk a little bit about the beginning days of how it started off volunteering and doing it for free and loving it, and ultimately how you've been able to monetize that.
Absolutely. So it was 2019, and I'll be honest, like we have these big dreams and desires, and the tuck shop was so easy, right? You open up a storefront. I'd already done my marketing.
Mhm.
I knew that this area needed a tuxedo and suit shop. And so it was easy, right? Money was coming in. I'm like, oh, this is easy, you know? But building an online business, 100% different. Marketing's still the same. You can market anything as long as you learn the basics of marketing.
Mhm.
But yeah, 2019 was a huge year. I actually filed for divorce. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, a disease, a health disease. And I started my business. And I remember in 2019, I made $10,000. And I was like, I don't know if I can keep up with this. Like many coaches, like many entrepreneurs, I think they get to that point where they're like, I've lost literally everything and what it felt like. And I went from, you know, a house on the lake back to like 2-bedroom apartment and government housing. I'm like, what is happening? And I just trusted and I had faith. And I remember it was like June, and my lease was up, and I turned to my best friend, Jen, and I said, Jen, I am not ready to give up on my passion. I know I am meant for more. I have very powerful stories. I love inspiring and impacting people. Like, I know I am meant for more. I cannot leave, right? Like, I cannot leave this place, but I do need a place to live. So me and my kids, we moved into the basement. I shared a room, which was my office. It was my bedroom. It was everything, right?
Mhm.
And that was my entrepreneurial journey. I was like, I'm not ready to give up. I am a fighter, and I'm going to see this thing through. And so thank God I did, right? Because 2020 like really turned. I ended up meeting my best friend and now current husband, who is active duty. And my business, I'd finally hit like 65K, 70. I'm like, yes, 2020 was a great year. I went from 10K to like 70K. I was like, there's hope for me. There's a man for me. I love this. And so I moved to, you know, I wanted to make sure that this relationship, it meant something. So I ended up moving down to New Mexico. So we're currently stationed here at Cannon Air Force Base.
Mhm.
And I remember that moment, and I was like, gosh, I don't know if I can grow a business at Cannon Air Force Base. It's a really tiny community. And it is actually every year has been better and better. So, you know, 2021, it went to like 100K. In 2022, I've had my first, you know, 50K, 75K, 100K months. So I really have learned and mastered this, you know, this online space. I was like, this is easy, Karissa. You do know what you need to do. You do need to build relationships. You do need to support your community and get involved with your base. You already know what you need to do in order to thrive. And yeah, as scary as that was picking up my family and moving us to New Mexico. And I always say nowhere New Mexico. It's been the best thing that I could have ever did for my business and for my heart, obviously, right?
Wow. I have to admit, I've never even heard of Cannon Air Force Base. I've flown into Kirkland a few times, but I've never heard of
Okay.
Cannon. Holy cow. Um,
Special operations base, super tiny.
so, so talk about what exactly you're doing now, or are you mostly, what's the revenue stream at this point? Is it mostly coaching, or go into this a little more detail for us?
Yeah, so I'm on par to kind of round out the year around 350K. I will say at least 275 comes from coaching and mentorship. I believe that people need coaches and mentors, even our military members, right? As a spouse, I'm like, man, if they only had a coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
I've worked with lots of active duty members. And because I get the lifestyle so I get them, and I also
Yeah.
get like how to implement healthy living into their current busy, crazy lifestyle of deployments and all that jazz. The other portion of my income definitely comes from speaking. As a motivational speaker, I travel all over the world. So it's really kind of cool to go back to some of these. Like I was just in Paris. I'm heading to Spain in 2 months, and so it's really kind of cool to be able to go back to these places that I once was as a spouse, now as a leader in my industry. It's really kind of cool.
Wow, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
um, are you speaking mostly to active duty military members, or are you heavily spouse oriented? Who's your main audience?
Yeah, it is impact driven leaders. Honestly, they're all females. They're women who need to kind of rise up in this world as well. So they either are looking to lose weight, like they come to me to want to lose weight. They honestly do. I mean, we all kind of hit that moment where like I need to do something with my physical body. But
Mhm.
what they leave with my once they work with me in my programs is this I've created this mindset for them, right? And they like literally become these unstoppable women, whether it's in their careers and getting promotions, because we know that when we physically feel good about ourselves, we then start to internally feel good about ourselves. But as a mindset mentor, like literally I change people's programmings and limiting beliefs around how they're doing and thinking about life, that once we get and we change the mindset, now they become unstoppable in all areas. So I literally help women boss up their bodies, their mindsets, and their lifestyles. And sometimes that means they get to boss up in their careers and their businesses too. Because, when we feel good, we sell more, we have more confidence. I mean, I've got women, I have coached some active duty women, that's for sure, here on this space. A lot of spouses here in this space, but most of my business is online. I've I coach women from all over, from Canada to, Europe. Australia is always a fun time challenge, time difference challenge one.
Yeah,
But
opposite.
any woman who is looking to boss up in her life and to create a new life for herself. And it's not just kind of for them, but I know as a female leader in my household that when I'm my best self, my husband is a better version of him, my kids are better versions of themselves. And so it's really important to kind of start, I feel, with the female, whether they're active duty or not.
So, if somebody comes to you and wants to hire you as their coach, can you walk us through some of the initial steps? Like, I'm curious, what's a first coaching session look like? And I'm kind of asking on a in a way of, like, is every person you sit down with, is it so obvious where you need to go with this person? Or it was like, okay, here's the top five, right? Let's get these right first. Or how do you begin?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm helping them build lifestyle habits for
Mhm.
sustainable health. So it's not about the quick fix. And I'm very upfront with them on that very first call. I'm like, if this is you, if you're looking for a quick fix, keep looking, because that ain't me, right? I'm here to help you. Once we lose the weight, you're never going to gain it back again, right? We're never going back to the depressed Karissa. We're never going back to that version, because that's the lifestyle way. So yeah, women come to me and they think their problems they're only their problems. Nobody else suffers with them. And I'm like, oh girl, I love you, but we actually all suffer from such similar problems. And so the very first thing that we attack is mindset. We always work on mindset, because if I can get, again, the mindset to start to shift, it helps me help them build these lifestyle habits. So after mindset, if I'm giving you like my expert advice when it comes to women's wellness, it's nutrition. So many women have issues with emotional eating, binge eating, celebration with eating. Like food is a huge part of how we feel, how productive we are during the day, how efficient, brain energy. So after, nutrition, then we talk fitness, lifestyle fitness, then we go into self-sabotage and, self-worth and self-love. So it is literally a program. I know exactly who I like to work with. And if they don't kind of check all the boxes, I don't take their dollar, because I know I won't be able to give them the transformation they're looking for. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's huge, especially in the coaching space. Coaches tend to follow the dollar and will create programs around every individual, where I have a program that I'm like, I know if a woman's looking to do X, Y, and Z, this is the exact path we're taking on. If not, I will refer it out all day long.
How long did it take you to arrive at that concept of turning people down if the customer's not right for you? You don't want to do business with them. Because that there's almost every business out there at some point has to make that decision, or they come to this realization of these couple of clients are pretty much taking me down with them, and I gotta cut ties. Was there a specific moment or a specific person that made you realize, look, I gotta, because turning money down is a big decision, especially in the beginning when you're trying to get started. So
Yeah.
anything come to mind when
I think it was like my seventh client that was really not my client, right? So we take them, we say, yes, like these women are literally like, here's my credit card, sign me up. When can we start?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. I'm not going to be the coach for you, right? I know who I am. So that's a big part of the process is, who am I? Who do I like to work with? Who do, like what type of transformations can I literally guarantee so that women feel really confident? And I feel confident in my program. So kind of just taking a step back and asking, who am I? What purpose am I here for? Who do I like to work with? Because it took me 2.5 years to get to that seventh client. And they cause me more stress. They're the women who I want it so badly for them, but they don't want it enough for themselves. They love to play the victim. They love making the excuses. And that's okay. That's where they're at in their journey. That's where I was before I hit rock bottom, right? I was the biggest excuse maker. I blamed everyone for my life. Like I just was like in this woe is me, feel sorry for me, like role. And the women I work with now have hit their rock bottom. They are ready to do the necessary changes. I'm like, losing weight's easy, but you've got to be able to consistently show up for yourself and do the things. You've got to be coachable and having enough. I always tell my clients, go out and get in a lot of no's. Because with a lot of no's, right, people who don't want to work with you, you will figure out who you like to work with. But yeah, it was probably my seventh client year, 2021, that I was like, I don't know. This person is causing me so much stress. I literally have given, I think that's that client, I gave her money back. I said, I am not your coach. I don't even it's not worth my time. My stress is my management of stress has to come down or my Hashimoto symptoms go up. So I really watch my stress levels. I'm like, no, I fire you.
Yeah. Because I've heard this story before in other businesses. Usually it takes place in the form of they're already your customer and you basically fire your customer because you can't take it anymore. So what you've done is you've put up a gate, you become a gatekeeper and you don't let them in. You've learned the lesson. I'm not letting them in unless they, meet these criteria.
Absolutely. And it's and what I don't even just coach one-on-one. I do, but those are high level packages. My main programs are in groups. So if I bring in like one bad egg is going to ruin them all. So I really protect that. It's kind of like, one negative airman literally like starts to suck all the energy down, the whole team, like everyone just like thank God I can fire those people. But yeah, I only want to work with women who are, are ready to do the changes.
Yeah. And you do only coach women. That's correct, right?
Yep. I'm going to get my husband once he retires. He'd be an amazing mindset mentor and coach for military, like active duty men. I really want to get him to transition into my space so he can help the guys. I can help the ladies.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your company. What's your website? What's the best way to get in touch with you, get in contact with you if someone's interested in either learning about how you run your business or maybe possibly even looking at you as a coach?
Absolutely. The best thing is, number one is go to my website, 365dailyhustle.com, DAILYHUSTLE.com. You'll figure out if you're looking for a speaker, a coach, a mentor, it's all there. However, if you are a woman who is like, dang, I think I need Karissa in my life, I would send you over to my Facebook page. I actually have a beautiful community where I literally go live, teaching, training, offering my services, giving free workouts, writing meal plan. Like, I want to give and serve. And that is the community I do it in. And it's called The Healthy Hustle by Karissa Adkins. So those are the two main places I would take you.
Great. If you're talking to a military spouse, maybe an active duty female out there, and they're looking to make a change in their life, what kind of advice comes to mind?
Follow your heart, right? Two things I would say: follow your heart and be willing to invest. Because it's like, especially my active duty spouse, or my active duty spouses, I'm like, what is this weight causing you, right? The lack of energy, they're very stressed out. Like, I'm like, you might not be here in 10 years if you continue on this path. You've got to get control of you. You cannot help your troops and your members if you cannot help yourself first. So follow your heart and be willing to invest in yourself.
Awesome. Well, Krista, thanks for sharing your personal story and especially your successful entrepreneurial journey with us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me.
All right. Look forward to your future success.
Thank you.
Take care. We are Oscar Mike.